that first cook-off in Ruidoso, golly, it was fantastic. And I found out later there was a guy in Gene Archery, Oklahoma, that was putting out a newsletter. It's like a newspaper, actually. And I saw something in there where there was a picture of a guy named Eddie Sandoval. And I called the guy that was the editor, and I said, "Do you know this Eddie Sandoval?" He said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I do." He said, "Why?" And I said, "I think that may be the same guy I went to college with." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Where's he from? Brady or down there close to San Angelo?" He said, "Yeah, that's him." Well, Eddie and I were in the same department, industrial arts, and he was our go-to guy. He was so brilliant that whenever we had a question on a project or whatever it was we were doing, we would go to Eddie to get the answer. And I mean, and I still do. I talk to Eddie on the phone probably every other day, still to this day. But anyway, I got in touch with Eddie, and come to find out we had been at a couple of chuck wagon cook-offs at the same time, and we didn't even know that that we were there. And the last time I had seen him was probably 30-something years ago when we went together up in Red River, New Mexico, fishing. That was kind of when he graduated and I was about to graduate and that sort of thing. And then we just lost track of each other. And 30-something years ago, later, the chuck wagon got us back together, and we've been pretty tight ever since. There were a couple of girls that joined us, Skip and I, up in Anthony, and we were cooking hoe cakes. And these two girls, they were getting their feet wet, literally. Meredith Abarca, I'll get it right in a minute, and Lucy West, and they came and joined us, and it was raining so hard. I try to keep from using too many adjectives there, but it was raining so hard. But these little hoe cakes, I was going to explain what the hoe cakes were. The people that were picking cotton back in the old days, whenever they wanted to take a break, they would take the head of the hoe off, and it was a big old hoe head with a handle that went through it like that. And they would take that off. They'd build a little fire, and they'd have a hoe that was almost that size, so they could cook 3 or 4, 5, 6 little hoe cakes, and didn't have to have anything but a little package of flour and cornmeal, and put some coffee in it. They usually have a little pot of coffee on somewhere, and that's what they'd make hoe cakes out of. So we were cooking these up in Anthony, and it was raining so hard that even though the Dutch oven lid was hot, you put them on there, and it was raining so hard it just melted, and it was just soup. And we thought, oh my God, we got people everywhere that as soon as it quits raining, they're going to be over here wanting something hot to eat. So we just scrape that out on the ground, and we managed to devise some crazy invention to keep from the water from falling on us. And we had the hoe cakes under here, and we were anyway, we managed to make some hoe cakes. But Lucy and Meredith, they were pretty good troopers, and we did some more stuff with them. They helped us in Ruidoso one time at Billy the Kid days up in Lincoln. And in fact, I think that may have been the first time that they joined us. And again, they were the hoe cake captains. Yeah, another story. We were down at Sul Ross. Jerry Baird, another guy that I went to college with that I hooked up with after many years, he was in front of me as well as in front of Eddie. But they invited us to come back and cook for the Alumni Association out at this fella Randy Jackson's house out there off of, out close to the Coconut Ranch and Miter Peak. And we said, sure, we'll bring the wagon out there and we'll cook. Well, at that particular time, I had a 27 Model T Ford pickup that I turned into a chuck wagon. So we took it out there and we set it out there in front of Randy's house. We had a little fly oh, I don't know, maybe 12 by 16 or something, pretty small. And it came a rain that like no other rains. And we had a big pot about that big, and I don't know how many gallons it would hold, but Jerry Baird was fixing the chili. And the wind was blowing and it was raining so hard that Eddie and I were just trying to dig trenches so that the water wouldn't run through the camp, it would try to run around it. So I was going around trying to anchor all of the canvas down so that the wind and rain wouldn't blow in, and Eddie was digging with the shovel, digging trenches so the water would run around, and Jerry was minding the chili. And when it was all over with, good Lord, it was that deep in mud, and it didn't slow us down. We had a pretty good time, and somebody was playing music, and everybody was dancing out in the mud and eating chili and having a good time. But boy, it was nasty there for a little while. I've got a bunch of recipes that I got here in my little box. And you can see, got my brand on it again, just in case, you know. But this box was my wife's grandmother, I believe, or great grandmother, and this box was dated 1884, March 21st. I went over it with marker because it was just about to fade out, but that's how old this box is. And of course, the recipes, some of them are kind of old too. And I got lots of recipes. And one recipe, in fact, I think there's only one recipe in here that I can't divulge what's in it, and that's because Jerry Baird gave it to me. It's a yeast bread recipe, and the fellow that gave it to him said, please don't give it to anybody or don't share with it what the ingredients are. And I cooked it 5 years before he really told me what was in it. 5 years I cooked with that Jerry Baird, 5 years. And finally he gave me the recipe. And I thought, wow, wow. But anyway, I wish I could tell you, but that's the one recipe I can't share. But I've got a recipe from Glenn Benson, one of his, what they call in South Texas, hot hamburger meat. And, I should have looked it up and see if I could find it. But I won't look it up. But it has raw meat, like sirloin, ground sirloin in it. And it has apples, and it has citrus. I think lemon or lime, I can't remember. And a lot of jalapenos. But you mix all of this stuff together, and the citrus is what cooks the meat, or cures the meat, basically. And you ask for it down in South Texas, like in Del Rio. So anybody sell hot hamburger around here, they'll tell you. But you ask somebody here in El Paso, do you have any hot hamburgers? What the hell's that? You know, but you can't believe how good that stuff is. It's just a dip, like a bean dip, except it's hamburger and, you know, all these other things. But that's a really good recipe. He told me not to share it, but I'm not going to. But anyway, Glenn is another one that gave me a recipe. In fact, he gave me a lot of recipes. Gave me a lot of hell along with them. But pozole, it's unlike any pozole I've ever eaten, and it'll feed 50, 60 people. You start off with a gallon of hominy, a yellow hominy, and a gallon of white hominy. And if you want to use bacon, you can use bacon, or if you want to use, that's what we usually use. You could use sausage. And then we put, oh gosh, all sorts of things, bell peppers and onions and celery and hatch chili powder. And, you know, you all know, those of you that eat chili or chili powder, that you never know what you're going to get. So sometimes it might be mild, and the next time it might, just break out in a cold sweat. But that's the way the pozole is you just never know, depending on the chili powder. Then somebody said, they're going to have a deal down at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio to thank the cowboys, I mean the warriors, the military people that had served in the military, and we wanted to gather together and feed them. So we gathered together, I don't know, 16, 18 wagons at Fort Sam Houston, and we fed like 4,000 or 5,000 people that were there, some injured, some not injured, but all sorts of military folks that were very appreciative, and we had such a good time. We cooked anything that we wanted to cook, everything that we wanted to cook. We had, I don't know how many Dutch ovens. I think we had 6 or 8 Dutch ovens just cooking cobblers. And I remember, oh my goodness, Marcus Reed and his wife and daughter and Steve Woods and Eddie Sandoval and, oh my goodness gracious, 16, 18 people on our cooking crew. And Eric Brazino, he said, man, I don't know why I come out here and cook with you guys. Everything you got is heavy or hot or stings you. And then he says, I just love it.